Allora, buon pomeriggio, benvenuti a tutti quanti per questo appuntamento di Lettera 22 che siamo orgogliosi di tenere in questo meraviglioso contesto. La Biblioteca Angelica. Nel salone, opera del Vanvitelli, 120.000 volumi del fondo antico, di cui circa 3.000 manoscritti e più di 1.100 incunamboli, tra cui la prima copia a stampa della Divina Commedia e il primo libro a caratteri mobili stampato in Italia, De Oratore, di Cicerone, e a molti di noi potrebbe essere utile. Grazie quindi alla direttrice della biblioteca, Fiammetta Terlizzi, e a tutta la squadra per la squisita collaborazione, e a tutto il personale della biblioteca. È davvero difficile introdurre una figura così complessa e dibattuta, e anche per questo affascinante, non posso negarlo, come quella di Steve Bannon. Giornalista, ufficiale di Marina, anch'io sono ufficiale ma dell'esercito, produttore cinematografico, investment banker in Goldman Sachs, stratega della comunicazione e politico, autentico guru della campagna elettorale che ha portato Donald Trump alla vittoria. Bannon poi è stato in seguito anche a fianco di Trump in qualità di consigliere. Dopo l'avventura alla Casa Bianca, lancia The Movement, probabilmente il più innovativo e ambizioso progetto politico degli ultimi decenni, poiché si propone di sostenere, promuovere la creazione di un movimento sovranista transnazionale anche in vista delle prossime elezioni europee. In questi anni la stampa mondiale ha cercato di affibbiargli molte etichette e intrappolare il suo pensiero in semplici slogan. Lui stesso, tuttavia, ama definirsi semplicemente come un nazionalista economico, economic nationalist. Al di là di come la si pensi, Steve Bannon è oggi indubbiamente tra le più influenti personalità del mondo politico e mediatico. È uno dei più importanti interpreti ideologici dei movimenti anti-establishment, sovranisti e nazionalisti, alla ribalta a livello globale e non solo dell'Occidente. Per quel che ci riguarda, tra le più grandi intuizioni di Bannon c'è in particolare quella di aver compreso e cavalcato la potenzialità della rete, insieme ai tanti attuali limiti dell'informazione mainstream, specialmente nelle grandi democrazie. Breitbart News, sotto la guida di Bannon, è riuscita ad esempio a dare voce a una destra americana che in precedenza poteva essere rappresentata soltanto da Fox News, e in questa prospettiva è ormai storia il fondamentale contributo fornito alle ultime elezioni americane a sostegno di Donald Trump. Considerate queste premesse, Lettera 22, l'associazione di cui mi onoro di essere presidente, che si batte da oltre 10 anni per un'informazione non omologata e sempre in prima linea contro la dittatura del politicamente corretto, non poteva non voler confrontarsi con Steve Bannon. Adesso lo ascolteremo, gli porremo delle domande, in questo sarò aiutato da alcuni colleghi di Lettera 22 che dopo aver ascoltato Bannon presenterò, ma prima di dargli la parola, considerata la tradizione che ricorda che Martin Lutero è venuto proprio in questa biblioteca prima di scrivere le sue tesi e che in questo salone vanvitelliano sono state girate alcune scene di Angeli e Demon di Ron Howard, e vista la frequenza con cui nei titoli dei libri e dei giornali Joshua Green, il diavolo, Joshua Green, Devil's Bargain, il Foglio, per citarne uno dei tanti, il diavolo veste Bannon, con cui Bannon è stato avvicinato alla figura del diavolo, devo per forza chiederlo: Steve Bannon, are you the devil?
Well, we'll let the audience decide that. I want to thank Letter 22 and the conservative journalist for having me here today to speak at this forum. It's a great honor. Nothing conquers except the truth. Nothing conquers except the truth. That's the motto of the Augustinian fathers that built, created, and ran this great institution that we're in today. This library was founded in 1604, 3 years before the English came to Jamestown, to my home state in Virginia. As we heard in our introduction, some of the oldest manuscript is from the 9th century. The corpus of the books here were the basis for the Renaissance in Renaissance Rome. This is a core institution of the Judeo-Christian West. The Augustinian fathers were from an order founded by St. Augustine. Of all the church fathers, St. Augustine was focused most on facts, on knowledge, in the search for truth. In fact, they said you could try to perfect yourself through the pursuit of truth. St. Augustine was from Roman Africa. He was from Numidia. St. Augustine was a Berber. Most of the original members of his order around him were either Berbers or Arabs. He was from what is today modern Algeria. The Judeo-Christian West is not about ethnicity and it's not about race. We're sitting here today in one of its greatest institutions. It's been passed down to us in a half a millennium of its physical structure and over a millennium of its content. This is the unbroken chain of reason and knowledge and the pursuit of truth that has been bequeathed to us. And so when people talk about nationalism and they talk about people trying to defend the Judeo-Christian West, this is not about race, it's not about ethnicity. It's about a civilization and a culture that has been handed down and bequeathed to us. In approximately 60 days, you're going to have, I think, one of the most important elections ever in Europe. That election will, I think, define the next 10, 20, or 30 years of the direction of this continent. And at its very basic core, it's going to come down to two philosophies. One is based upon the Treaty of Westphalia and 300 years of the nation state, and the central premise that the citizen is the basic unit in a nation state. The other philosophy is personified by the European project. And that is to look at Europe as a United States of Europe, where Italy is not Italy, and France is not France, and Hungary is not Hungary. But where Italy is like South Carolina to France's North Carolina, and Hungary is Georgia to Germany's Virginia. The internal logic of the European project and the eternal logic of individuals like Macron, who has laid this out in a great level of detail, is increasing commercial integration, increasing capital markets integration, increasing budgetary integration, with the lessening of the power of the individual nation state and the lessening of the rights and obligations and duties of its individual citizens. On the other side are Orban and Le Pen and Salvini, who understand the centrality of the nation state in the history of Europe, in the history of mankind. There are two types of politicians and political figures in Europe today. Those that see the nation state as something to be overcome, and others that see the nation state as something to be protected and polished and made better. The idea of a nation state, and particularly the value of citizenship, is centered here in Rome. The entire argument in the Roman Republic, and particularly this great civil wars that brought it to its end, was the issue of citizenship of people in Rome versus citizenship of the people in Italy. It's the reason that Italy in Rome is more important than even its physicality and what it means to the other nations of Europe as a nation, and what it means to the world as a nation. Over a year ago, Italy voted in an election and came to a conclusion when two political parties, one a populist party that was center-left, the other more of a nationalist party that was center-right. And they tried a great experiment that had not been done in modern politics. They tried to put together a government of both the left and the right, of populist and nationalist. And when that government was put together, it put forward who they said should be the prime minister. And it was rejected by the people in Brussels and the people at the European Central Bank. In your election, almost 63 to 65% had voted for either populist or nationalist candidates. Yet the powers that be in Brussels said the Italian people do not deserve to have their own rights to put together their own government. And so we will do what we've done for so many years in the previous decade. We will take the power back from the citizens of Italy, and we will make a decision. That collapsed within 24 hours. And you saw a government put up another potential prime minister, but said we're not going to have one forced on us. We're not going to have something rammed down our throat. Has this experiment over the last year been perfect? No. Has it gone in fits and starts? But show me another government in the world or another people in the world that would essentially come together and put forward the budget that the Italian government did, that showed the basic compromise between the two parties on the guaranteed income, the flat tax, the different economic philosophies, to work in compromise, as a democracy is supposed to do, to put forward a plan that has as much buy-in as possible from all the people. It'd be the equivalent in the United States of the Trump deplorables working with Bernie Sanders people. Yet for the second time in under a year, the financial powers that be in the party of Davos, in your overlords in Brussels, rejected it. It's very simple. They see Italy as an administrative unit. No matter what the happy talk is, when it comes to core central decisions, whether it's who's going to be prime minister or what your budget's going to say, they want to make the ultimate decisions, not the citizens of Italy. I pick up a random newspaper from today, the Daily Telegraph in London. The headline, May on bended knee goes to the EU. I have a lot of issues with the Prime Minister and how she's conducted these negotiations, particularly the advice President Trump gave her at the beginning, back in January of 2017. But why does a duly elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom have to go on bended knee to Barnier, to Tusk, and to Juncker? And why does an American have any interest in this at all? Before I came into President Trump's campaign, for 10 years of my life, I've been working on this populist nationalist project. Before I was a naval officer, and before I went to Harvard, and before I went to Goldman Sachs, I came from a very humble, blue-collar, working-class family that were very devout Catholics. We were Kennedy Democrats. And I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life, and hopefully if I have another 10 and another 10 after that, to work anywhere in the world for the little guy, for the populist cause, and for economic nationalism. One of the reasons I was brought into the Trump campaign with only 88 days to go is because I had a very strong understanding of working class issues. And Donald Trump is president because working class people in places like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Ohio and Iowa that had never voted for a Republican candidate voted for him. Hillary Clinton, the representative of the elites, referred to them as deplorables. The elites, the party at Davos, do not think that the deplorables, whether those deplorables are in Hungary, whether those deplorables are in France, whether those deplorables are in Italy or the United States, they do not believe they should have a voice. It's upon their shoulders and their backs that these institutions are able to go forward. Since August of 17, when I left the White House, I've gone throughout the whole world, from Asia to Europe to Latin America to all over the United States, giving speeches. And the audience is always the same. Humble, decent, hardworking people of every ethnicity, race, and religion. I just got back from 8 days in Japan, and I went to the United States. I spent 3 days talking about to working class people about the border, and then I went and met Bolsonaro in Brazil in Washington, D.C. In Japan, and in the heartland of our country, and with Captain Bolsonaro in Brazil, the topic was all the same. China.
La Cina.
It just so happens today, with great irony, that President Xi happens to be here in Rome. Xi is not here because of a port on the Adriatic. He's here because of this. The Chinese have a rapacious strategy of global domination. In the concern of leaders and people from Japan to the heartland of the United States to Brazil understand this. This is not about the Chinese people. The Chinese people have their own deplorables called Old Hundred Names. I have a great love for China. I've been there since 1976. I've lived in China. I have a great affinity for the Chinese people. We're live streaming right now into China with people on their private VPNs to get around the Chinese firewall. President Xi is a totalitarian dictator on the cruelest system in the world today. One Belt, One Road, Made in China 2025, and the 5G rollout of Huawei, the convergence of that will give them complete, total domination of advanced manufacturing. Their concept is to absolutely break the Westphalian system. This is not me saying this. This is President Xi saying this. He went to Davos the week that Trump gave his inaugural address, and in Davos, they all worshiped him as the great savior of globalization and the globalization project. And the people in Davos, the consulting firms, the law firms, the investment banks, the commercial banks, all knew about the Uyghurs and the Dalai Lama in Tibet. And they knew about the persecution of the Christians and the persecution of the Catholic Church. They knew about all of it. They mocked and ridiculed Trump that week for defending the nation state in Washington in his inaugural address. But they worshiped him in Davos as the savior of globalization. That's because the party at Davos has no moral authority, no sense of ethics, and no common decency. And the reason is they worship one thing, and it's money. The Chinese system is to build an advanced manufacturing around China and have a network effect around One Belt, One Road, the 5G rollout, and advanced manufacturing that'll make everybody else a supplier of raw materials, a supplier of maybe some component parts in a market. So that slaves in China can make cheap mass goods for the unemployed and underemployed in the West.
Steve, scusa, mi ha chiamato Xi Jinping e mi ha detto di farti smettere.
Xi Jinping just called me and told me to stop.
Two more minutes of my favorite. 2 more minutes. Is that I find it ironic that a party that thinks so highly of the environment could want to make a deal with the world's biggest polluter. Gilets jaunes is a result of having the little guy pay in taxes for Chinese pollution. As Matteo Salvini said, he would not ask or look one time at a foreign investor trying to buy your infrastructure, but 100 times. And I just beseech the people of Italy to look at the East India Company predatory capitalist model of China before they make a decision. and ask the people in Malaysia, in Sri Lanka, in Maldives, in Sub-Saharan Africa, and Brazil how it's turned out. I want to close by saying this is not even the biggest outrage. The other reason that she is here is the Vatican. Pope Francis has signed a secret deal with the most atheistic government on the planet. He has given a government, a radical cadre in the government of Xi and Wang Qingshan, total control of the selection of bishops among Catholics in China. Cardinal Zen of Hong Kong, who I would posit, along with the Dalai Lama, is one of the two holiest men in the world, has condemned this deal as a sellout of the living saints of the underground Catholic Church in China. I'm calling on the Pope to make that deal transparent. Every Catholic, every Christian, every citizen of China, every citizen of the world should be able to read every line of that deal. And I'm going to tell you why it's secret. Because there's a path in that deal that shows a pathway to show full diplomatic relations, full diplomatic recognition between the Vatican and the Chinese Communist Party. This library was founded by one of the great orders of the Catholic Church, predicated on the search for truth and the betterment of man. And it is a total and absolute disgrace that the Pope and his henchmen have signed a deal that sells out the living saints in China today. Thank you so much for having me.